think so many of us feel broken or not enough or too much. Or we all have our story about how we should be and how we're not. And mastery isn't walking around being this perfect human who never gets triggered and always is kind and can resolve their triggers in an instant. It's really just having an understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 613 with guest Christine Hassler. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. You probably can't hear this. The mic probably isn't picking it up, but I'm going to mention it anyway, because some of you may hear it and then I might get a DM. I just moved into a place that I'm renting about 3 weeks ago. Did you hear that? Did you hear that chirp? About a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, one of the smoke alarms started chirping. You know what I'm talking about, that annoying chirp that happens every, 15, 30 seconds when a smoke alarm battery is either dying or dead. So I went out to investigate. It just chirped again. I went out to investigate, and it's a 1-story house, but it has these beautiful vaulted ceilings. At least 20 feet in the air in the living room. There's only in the living room are these vaulted ceilings. Well, kitchen and living room. And the smoke alarm that is beeping is the one positioned on the ceiling at the very top of this vaulted ceiling. There are several other smoke alarms in each bedroom, normal height ceilings. So when it happened, I stared at it and was like, how am I going to reach that? I have a ladder, but it's like a little mini metal ladder. I think it's about a 4-foot ladder. So I don't have a ladder big enough. Even the taller ladder that I left behind in my marital home, it's a taller ladder, but it still wouldn't reach that. So I called the property management company and I put in a work order, and they were like, yeah, since it's a simple battery change, you're in charge of that. I said, ma'am, I just moved in. I don't know, but I feel like new batteries for a smoke detector should be put in when someone new moves in. Maybe that's not the rule, but they were like, well, we can send somebody out, but they're going to charge you for it. And I was like, excuse me? Okay. So I have to pay. I just moved in. I have to pay to have y'all come out I know how to change a battery. That's what they were kind of making it sound like. It was just a simple battery change. I know that. Or I have to pay to rent the equipment from the Home Depot. I suppose I could just hop on some dating apps and ask if somebody has one. So I went on Nextdoor, it's the kind of a social media app where it's like people in your neighborhood. It's mostly people mad about loud teenagers and suspicious people selling magazines door to door. But I went on there, said what I needed to say, and somebody said, call the fire department. They might be able to help you. So I called the fire department, and he said, he's like, here's what you should do. He said, look at the other smoke alarms in the house. You have to pop them off. On the inside, it'll tell you when they expire, because smoke alarms, I didn't know this. Smoke alarms don't last forever and you just keep changing the battery. They actually expire. He said, do that. If they are expired, most likely all of the smoke alarms have the same date in the house. He's like, if it's not expired yet, then we can come out. But if they're expired, we can't, because it's the property management's responsibility to change them out. They're legally responsible for having working and not expired smoke detectors. So I got my happy ass on my 4-foot ladder, and I looked at the one in my bedroom, and it expired in 2021. But of course, it was Friday afternoon when I found this out. So I called the property management company, left them a message, and I have not heard from them. And it's Monday at 11 a.m. And this smoke thing is going to make me crazy. Anyway, that's my week and a half. How's yours? Okay. I have an amazing guest today, per usual. But this one's extra special. Christine Hassler and I go way back. I'm assuming many of you listen to her podcast. If you listen to this one, we've known each other forever and ever. We've met up a couple of times. She's just really great people. Always so much wisdom and insight when she comes on the show. And before I tell you a little bit about her, if you're new to her work, I have 2 spots open right now for summer coaching. Or if you want to get on and we can start in the fall, if that's a better time for you, let's set something up to chat. If you head on over to AndreaOwen.com/links, that's where everything is. You can read more about my coaching programs, what, my ideal client looks like, what kind of things we work on. And then you can also book a 20-minute call with me. We'll hop on Zoom, we'll chit chat. You tell me what your primary focus is. I tell you exactly how I think I can help you. And if I can't, which rarely happens, but sometimes I can tell you what I think the next best steps for you would be. All right. Let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Christine Hassler is a master coach, spiritual psychologist, facilitator, and speaker with 20 years experience. She is the best-selling author of 3 books, most recently Expectation Hangover, Free Yourself from Your Past, Change Your Present, and Get What You Really Want, and is the host of top-rated podcast Over It and On With It, where she coaches people live on the show. She's also the co-founder of Elementum Coaching Institute, a premier coaching certification program. Christine has appeared on The Today Show, CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox, E! Style, and the New York Times. Christine believes once we get out of our own way, we can show up to make the meaningful impact we are here to make. Before we jump into the interview, I want to tell you about a free webinar that I'm co-hosting with my dear friend and colleague, Amy Ehlers, called Top 10 Kick-Ass Tips to Get Your Writing Project Started, Done, or Out the Door. We've hosted this a few times since 2020, and we haven't done it in a couple of years, so we're really pumped about it. It's on Wednesday, July 17th at noon Pacific time, 3 Eastern time. Yes, there will be a recording if you can't come live, but it's going to be really fun if you come live. We're going to be talking about our best tips ever for completing that writing project that maybe has been collecting dust. Whether it's poetry, a novel, or even just journaling, whatever's on your heart, this will be helpful for you. We're going to be talking about accountability, about high expectations, the energy of urgency. We're also going to be spending a little bit of time talking about traditional book publishing and writing book proposals for any of you that are interested. This particular call is free. Wednesday, July 17th. And we will be talking at the very end briefly about a program that we have called the Writing Experience. Some of you have asked me when we're going to be teaching it again. We're doing it this summer. And again, the webinar is free, but we are going to be talking about that program at the very end, just to give you a heads up. That link is at AndreaOwen.com/links. Super easy. At the very top, you'll see the button to sign up for that. Again, AndreaOwen.com/links. So without further ado, here is Christine. Christine, welcome back.
Oh, it's great to be here. I always love my conversations with you.
I know. I think it's been a minute, and I always have you on every couple of years. The podcast is 11 years old now.
I love that. We're like OG podcasters. We were doing it before everybody was doing.
So it makes sense that you've been on as many times as you have, as being in my circle. And this time I have a plethora of questions for you. I kind of picked and chose what I think are kind of like your main topics. And I want to start with something you call personal mastery. So can you tell us what does that mean to you and your community and what you facilitate and teach?
Well, I named that course in, I don't know, a long time ago, probably 2015, 16, 17, around there. What I was thinking when I named it is that when we really have mastery over ourselves and we understand why we do things the way we do, why we feel things the way we do, it can make us feel a lot less crazy and a lot less out of control and a lot less broken. I think so many of us feel broken or not enough or too much. We all have our story about how we should be and how we're not. And mastery isn't walking around being this perfect human who never gets triggered and always is kind and, can resolve their triggers in an instant. It's really just having an understanding of yourself. Like I would say I have mastery over myself. And sometimes I don't use all my tools. I still have my very, very human moments, but at least I understand why I'm having the reaction I'm having. I'm able to like reflect back on an action and go, man, like that wouldn't be the way I'd handle it if I had to do it over. Why did I handle it that way? What can I learn from it? It's really being a constant student of our life and realizing we're actually never done and we're never there.
Oh, I love that. I didn't know the answer to that. I really honestly didn't know what you were going to say. And it sounds like radical self-awareness to self-acceptance is kind of the crux of it.
Yes. And I think as someone who's been in the personal development space like you, I mean, I had my first client in 2004 and I started seeing my first psychiatrist at 11.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot. And I had a conversation with my coach yesterday and I was just like, God, I know this, but man, I'm still having a hard time really integrating this one. And I think there's a misunderstanding that, when you do personal development and you have a lot of tools that you should never be human. Like you shouldn't have these human moments where you really struggle or you really don't like the way you're acting. And those things do happen. But with mastery, we're able to see it with more love and with more perspective and actually see a way through it. I'm sort of at the point now where it's like, I know the tools. I know my way out. It's just, am I going to choose to use them or not?
Yeah.
And that's a more empowering place to be than, I don't know what's going on. I have no tools. I can feel completely dysregulated. And to me, that's where we want to get in our growth is to have this toolbox that we can lean into. And then it's like, and there's some days, Andrea, I don't know about you, but I'm like, nope, don't feel like using that freaking tool. Nope.
Don't want to take the high road. Yeah.
Gonna be miserable. Gonna be a bitch right now. That's what I'm choosing.
Yeah, I think it surprises some people when we reveal that. And I honestly I don't know if I completely trust people who say that they don't have that as part of their life. And it's interesting. I want to share two quick anecdotes that I thought of while you were saying that. Is I just got off the phone with a client before this call. And she had brought a topic where she wanted to learn how to be more assertive and decisive. And I'm like, okay, so, we're coaching and really what it came down to is her assignments, without getting into all the details, like her assignments were around having compassion for herself, that she is in a place where she is indecisive because she cares what other people think, and like loving that part of her and like looking at that and like, and just getting really curious and things like that. So it can look like it can sort of manifest a lot of different ways, like the place where we need to do that, like to get to our own personal mastery and having that radical self-awareness and self-compassion. In regard to what you were saying around sometimes not using the tools and not, acting as your highest self. I was talking to someone who's in his early 30s and he was talking about, like how long does he want to wait until how long to date someone before he decides that he might want to spend the rest of his life with this person or, get married. And I said, as your elder, I will tell you this. I said, the best way to know that is go through a personal crisis with that person.
Yeah.
Because then you will know not only how they handle it, but that you will see how the both of you show up for each other in those moments. Yep. Don't wait until you're already married. Right. You might not like what you see.
It's so true. It's so true because it's easy. Well, I won't say it's easy, but it's easier to be quote unquote our best selves when there isn't anything really challenging happening.
Yeah.
And when it's anything from a crisis to just something that's challenging, like how does someone react when your flight's delayed 7 times and they lose your baggage?
Yeah. Yes.
How does someone react when, whatever, there's these life things that can just be challenging, and how do you navigate that together? And I think that's a great question to ask ourselves as well. Like I was just at Old Navy and I had stuff to return, and I was like 2 days over the 30-day return policy. And I was just like, come on, guys, like it's 2 days over. Like, well, you can have store credit. I'm like, I don't want more stuff. I just want to return. And I just allowed myself to get frustrated and kind of going, wow, if there's a camera on me that was broadcasted to anyone who's ever read my books or listened to my podcast, they'd be like, she's a total fraud. Look at her right
Look at
now.
this
She's
Karen at
losing.
Old Navy.
And then I like caught myself and I apologized. And I'm like, wow, I am so tired right now. I've had a really hard week and I actually need an anger release. Like I need to let some of this like tough stuff that I haven't, because we were away on a trip and I was like full-time mom all the time and trying to juggle other things. My daughter was cutting a molar and she fell into a cactus and there was like all this stuff that was happening. And there was other stuff that was happening that kind of made me angry. And that to me, and that's the mastery part. The mastery isn't being this like angelic human all the time. Like, sure, I'd love to be that. And at the same time, like you said, I don't know if that's possible. So the mastery comes in and going, all right, this was a challenging moment. I didn't respond my best. Like what's really underneath that and what do I really need? So that I don't get frustrated at a point, well, maybe, and it wasn't anything like terrible. Like if a video went viral, I wouldn't be canceled, but it's more about just knowing like this is not the way I want to be. And as much as we want to see how like somebody else is, we also want to look at ourselves. Like how are we in those situations? And then how does the way we respond match with the potential partner's response to those things? Because it's easy when everything's going great. It's easy to be in love.
When you have control of your emotions and your experiences. And yeah, exactly. Well, and also looking at how they clean up messes when they aren't their best self. Like you were saying at Old Navy, you paused and realized like, okay, I'm mad about other things too.
Yes.
And how they take responsibility for any behavior that is less than great. Because we all do that.
We all do it.
I know that you also help people identify what's holding them back. So have you found like a pattern of what that typically is for women?
For all women, no. I mean, it so depends on their upbringing and their parenting and so many things. Like what holds me back is probably going to be different from what holds you back. We all have our story, but if I was going to say, like, if I was going to drill it down to one thing, it's basically a limiting belief and an adaptive pattern that we've developed because of that belief.
Okay. Say more about that.
So my limiting belief, one of mine from childhood, is like, I don't belong. Like people don't like me. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with me, like socially.
I have a similar one, but mine sounds like that people are just kind of humoring me and they say that they like me, but they don't really. They just like kind of tolerate me.
Right. Okay, great. So my adaptive pattern in that, one of my adaptive patterns is I'm not always direct when people do things that I don't like. When I feel like someone has like crossed a boundary with me or is treating me in a way that I don't like, I actually don't speak up for myself a lot of times because there's a part of me because that belief that's so invested in not wanting to not belong again, not be ostracized, not have people mad at me, because my whole story that created that belief is like, I did something wrong. That's why people are not liking me. The way I hold myself back is I often don't speak up for myself. I often don't say, hey, this is not working for me in this dynamic or this relationship. Or I often fawn and try to be a version of myself then that's different from like who I truly am. Now, over time, I've worked on this, so it doesn't hold me back as much, but it still comes up. I just had a situation in a friendship where like I reached a point where I was like, oh my gosh, like I need a break. And it was a shock because from the friend's perspective, it's like, wait, what's going on? But from my perspective, it was like so much stuff was building, and that really holds me back in my life because the amount of time I have spent worrying about someone else's feelings and being strategic in my actions by trying to predict what they're feeling and also being an empath and like feeling when people are upset at me. So, big picture, when we have that pattern of being so concerned with what someone else is going to think, that absolutely is going to hold us back in so many ways in our life. So I'm curious, how does that story of like people just tolerate me or just humor me Like, what adaptive pattern has that created for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you were sharing your experience. I think similar to yours that I tend to sweep things under the rug and I talk myself out of it hurting my feelings. So when someone does something that bothers me, I minimize it. And I'm like, well, it wasn't that bad, or it's
Mm-hmm.
fine. Like it really wasn't that big of a deal. And then unfortunately, what ends up happening is if they bring something to me that I've done, then it all comes tumbling in. And then it feels unfair for me to bring it up because and I won't do it in the moment. Like I always let people like have a conversation about something. And then I beat myself up for not bringing it up in the first place. So that's the pattern and I don't realize in the moment that I'm being dismissive. I convince myself that I'm right in dismissing it.
Right.
That's my pattern.
Yeah. And see how
And
you
I'm like,
can
oh
see
no,
it.
I do really care. Like I do really. And it feels easier just to not say anything because also I think that I've had experiences, especially now that I've gotten, this is, I think something I've never talked about on the podcast before. I've had experiences where I've been in friendships and we both have good communication skills and the conversations are exhausting to me. Absolutely exhausting, emotionally, mentally, physically. They take everything out of me. And I think it's because they are exhausting, I think, for anyone. They're just very tiring. And also just because of my own nervous system of feeling like, okay, this is unsafe, is so uncomfortable. Like I'm not used to this. This is not my upbringing. It's still kind of new. So I think that's part of why I avoid it. It's not the discomfort because I know the outcome is going to be good. I'm very aware of this. It's the outcome of I don't have the bandwidth for this.
Yeah.
So it becomes easier for me just to like jump right over it.
Yeah. And what's the cost in that?
It's damaging to the relationship.
Right.
Because then I get resentful.
Yeah.
And that's on me.
Right. Yeah. Oh, resent.
I know.
We so think we're like so righteous and blaming. And resentment is just it's so toxic and it's so covert in some ways.
Yeah.
I can fall into this too of being, not necessarily being direct, but inside of myself having this whole conversation. And I really have to watch this in my marriage because my husband's more overt and that's pushed me into, he's more aggressive. I'm more passive aggressive and more covert. And so where he'll just be like really clear if he's pissed off with me about something.
Yeah.
I will be like, oh, I don't want to deal with the conflict. I don't want to deal with his upsetness. It's just not that big of a deal. And I'll convince myself it's not that big of a deal, but it's just like I'll throw it in my bucket of resentment. And then, that bucket gets full and
spills over.
It spills over. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, why don't you take a quick ad break? And when we come back, I would love for us to chat about some like baby steps to remedy this. So we'll be right back, everybody. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea. Okay, before the break, we were talking about conflict and, it being kind of a byproduct of the thing that holds you back and just the massive discomfort around that. And you and I both shared, our own kind of experiences with that. What have you found to be a good baby step in the direction of let's get specific and talk about hard conversations and setting boundaries? Where do you advise people to start there?
Well, I can give you an example of something somebody might be struggling with, because I think it depends on what specifically, because your audience.
Yeah.
What's the specific thing someone might be up for someone right now?
Let's say that it is a partner or a close family member that they need them to help them out in a certain way, or either show up for them differently. Let's use that example. They want to ask someone to show up for them a certain way when they bring something that they've been challenged. So let's say you and I are good friends, and I'm under a really stressful job. I'm bringing my complaints and my stresses to the job, and you have always jumped in with advice on how to fix it, and have I tried this, and oh, you're so much smarter than that, Andrea. And all I want is for you to just listen and be there for me, but I'm really struggling on how to tell you how I want you to show up for me.
Right. So if we're struggling on any level, or we're triggered on any level, that usually means that we've time traveled and there's an inner child that's active. Because when there's an inner child that's active, we find communication a lot harder, because it is harder to communicate from those parts, because there's, they're younger parts. So in that example, which is a great example, that generally means that there's some kind of trigger, some kind of childhood thing where probably our parents on some level, we didn't feel like they really responded to us in the way we needed when we brought them something. Maybe they did give advice. Maybe it's a straight up mirror example. Or maybe, they jumped in and tried to fix all our problems. Or maybe they dismissed us. Or maybe they pretended not to care. Or maybe they made fun of us.
Or told us we were
having an issue.
Yeah,
too
we
much,
shouldn't be complaining.
Too emotional, too sensitive, all those things. Oh, you're too sensitive. So first we want to look at, all right, where has this need been unmet before? Like, where have I felt like this before? And not from a psychoanalytical point, but more from the really connecting with that part of us that still has that wound, and first meeting it for ourselves, because we are going to be way more articulate and actually way less triggered and way less needy when we've resolved need inside of ourselves. Like, we've come up with the solution inside ourselves. We're giving ourselves what the person, the friend in this example, but really the parent never gave us. Then we're able to articulate the need a lot clearer. So in this example, again, we really want to ask, all right, when have I felt like this before? Oh, yeah. Whenever I brought a problem to my mom, she just tried to jump in and fix it, or say, oh, they're just jealous, or, oh, like, you'll do fine next time. And my feelings just never really felt like validated. I just wanted her to hear me. Like, then we ask, like, what did I really want from my mom? Well, I just really wanted her to hear me. I really wanted her to empathize. I really wanted her to say, man, yeah, that's hard. Yeah, that was mean what they said. And like, to have her full presence. Because whenever someone is trying to fix us or give us advice or dismissing us or whatever, they're not comfortable with our feelings, which means they're not comfortable with their own feelings.
Right.
Like, they're trying to find a solution or dismiss or whatever. So we go, wow, like, this is what I really wanted. I just really wanted her to just listen, to just be present, to just be there with me, not necessarily for me, but with me. Because that's how we create intimacy. And in this friend example, like, we're looking for intimacy. We're looking for connection. Like, we're not looking for a solution. Because when someone does that, we can feel dismissed, just like your mom made you feel. So we talk to that little girl. We say, yeah, I know you really wanted mom to just say that she's there for you. And she didn't. And you can be angry about that. And you can write about it and journal about it. You can scream into a pillow about it. And I want you to know I'm here. And I'm really hearing, that this job is really hard for you, or whatever it may be. And then when we can do that inside ourselves, when we come to a friend, we can say, hey, you know what I really love, like, I know I'm complaining about my job a lot. And I know from where you sit, like, it would be easier if I just changed it, but I'm not there yet. And what I really, really love is for you just to hear me, just to listen, just to validate what I'm feeling. That would mean so much to me.
Yeah.
And although you might be listening and go, well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I didn't have to do all this like background work and inner child work and mom work. You might be saying the exact same thing, but the energy it's riding on is going to be so much different. Because when we don't do the inner child work, the energy it rides on is blaming and needy, because we have unresolved anger at our parent, in this example, that we're now projecting on that person, which is going to make them much less likely to hear our request without defensiveness. But when we actually resolve the inner child need, like, be the parent that we didn't have, then when we make a request, all the blame and neediness energy is not there. And they're going to be less likely to be defensive and actually hear what we're saying.
That's some heavy lifting work. That's some big work. I love it.
It is. But like, the more you do this work, the less you have to do.
True.
It's sort of like going to the gym and running on a treadmill for an hour, or like getting on that damn elliptical for an hour, versus like 20 minutes of HIIT training and you're done.
You access it easier.
So much easier.
Yeah.
You're so much more effective.
Yeah. It's interesting. I have anytime somebody, if I'm talking about this, my sort of limiting belief around, people don't actually really like me all that much. Mine is with a friend group in probably fifth grade. I know I've told this story on the podcast before, and I've talked to one of the girls in this little trio that we had. So I had I had one, best friend from like second grade, and then another girl kind of entered our friend group, and it was the three of us, which can be tricky. Three best friends. For the most part, we made it work. And then one summer, so we had gone to Girl Scout camp together for several summers in a row. I think it was the summer between fourth and fifth grade. I ended up, and we would get a catalog every summer, or like, as the school year was ending, and you'd pick, and your parents would help you sign up, and then really fun camps. And I don't remember the details, but I had asked my one friend, what camp are we going to this year? Like, which one do you want to sign up for? And she said, oh, I already signed up with, insert other girl's name. We're going to, or no, it was my mom that ended up telling me. She was like, they signed up for canoe camp and they're going to go together. And I was devastated. Like, and I remember being that young, imagining them with the catalog together, deciding what camp to go to and like planning it out, like without me. And that wrecked me. And I never talked to them about it until decades later, when it came up in a therapy session, when my therapist asked me, it was something around this topic of like feeling like nobody really likes me. They just pretend that I do, that they like me. And then she said, is this an old wound or a new wound? And I think it was a bit of a rhetorical question. Like, she knew, she's helping me, like, guide me to when did this start? Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is an old wound. And I told that story and I'm crying. And it like that little 8-year-old girl is still like my throat tightens just a little tiny bit, even now when I tell this story.
Yeah.
Still hurts.
Yeah. So what do you think that little 8-year-old girl still needs?
I've thought about this before. I think she needs to know that I don't know if I can totally answer that, because like part of me says like, well, logically, like there's a chance that they just didn't want to go with me. That it happens sometimes. I get it. And that would also devastate me, even as a 49-year-old woman. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm a good time. Or just that, like, it wasn't personal at all. Like, it just, like, who knows? She doesn't need a reason, because I think it would be hard for me to accept whatever reason it was, like to believe, I know my dog agrees, to accept whatever reason it was. So maybe it's just lots and lots of compassion and a hug and just saying like, you know what? That sucked. That really sucked. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that.
And she might also need to like really have an anger burn about it.
Yeah. So tell us, like, what does that look like? Like, how do you advise people to do that?
And this is so important for women and girls too, because if you think about it, like girls really aren't encouraged to be angry.
Right.
At all. I know when I did some deep work around my mean girl stuff, what really helped unlock it and free me the most was, so the way you can go to christinehauser.com/anger release. And I have an expert from my last book where I walk you through how to do an anger release. And then in the personal mastery course, I actually have a video where I show you how to do it. The short version of it, like the easy way to explain it, is that, so like a rage room and boxing and things like that, those are great cathartic releases, but I wouldn't actually call that a true anger release, because you're just sort of yelling and hitting stuff without like attaching it to a memory that created that anger in the first place.
Okay.
So can I use you as an example?
Yeah,
8-year-old girl. Okay. So I really liked, for a lot of us in the world, especially this part of the world, it's summer. So that means that they're selling pool noodles, those foam pool noodles. Get one of those, cut it in half, because that's a great thing to hit with. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't lead to a sore neck. It's like, and it makes a good sound, but it's not like super loud. And get a pool noodle, get some pillows, get a Kleenex box, get a stuffed animal, or like a pillow you can hold or something. In this example, I would close my eyes. I would bring myself back to that feeling, kind of like you did today. You felt your throat tighten, like you felt it in your body. Still today, 40 years later, like really bring yourself back and tell that inner 8-year-old, like, get them. You say everything you want. Like, you can use cuss words. You can do whatever you want. Like,
name call.
Name call. You can do it all. Like, get this anger out. Let them know how much you hurt. And use words. That's what makes anger release, I call it a temper tantrum technique, different than a cathartic release, because we're actually putting words to what made us angry. And we're actually expressing the things that we never got to express then. So really like getting all that anger out, really letting him have it. And a lot of people say, oh no, energetically, that's bad. Like, I don't want to do that, especially if we have anger at our parents or anyone that we love. And it's like, listen,
Right.
it's in your body, it's in your consciousness anyway. You're
Mm-hmm.
actually doing everyone a favor by getting it out, getting out. But I know for me, I don't know if that's something you've done or if that's something that even would
Yeah.
support. But I know for me, like when I actually let my adolescent girl have her rage, like really have her rage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's what freed it up. And you know what's so interesting is like after I did that, I got a Facebook message from one of the girls
What?
apologizing. And this was like 30 years later,
You're
at least.
kidding.
Nope. It was like 2 days later. Because
Wow.
after we do the anger release, then we can get to forgiveness. Then we can get to like, I forgive myself for holding on to this anger. We're not just
Mhm.
condoning or forgiving, the people leaving us out or being mean, but we're forgiving ourselves for holding on to the anger and
Right.
the judgments. And it just shifted something energetically, and I couldn't believe it. Well, I could, but I couldn't. It's just like, wow, this shit works.
I believe that. I haven't done that exercise for that particular topic. And I'm thinking of it. I think what I would do is I would get out pictures of the three of us because I have
Mm-hmm.
several of us, the three of us together and do it that way. And it's funny you mentioned a rage room. I've a girlfriend of mine, we were going to do it for my birthday in April and we haven't done it yet. We keep talking about it, like, we need to plan this. We need to plan this. And I haven't ever done it yet, but my plan is to incorporate like what you said. Like I am going to bring pictures of the particular people that I'm angry at. I'm going to listen to music that reminds me of my time with this person. And in the rage room, scream their name. Because here's what I have done before in the moment. So a while back when, my marriage we had just decided to end our marriage it was contentious and, exchanging emails. And there were moments where I was furious and just like, how did I just in complete because if anyone's listening who's ever been divorced, like many times you are not dealing with the same part of that person that you were married to or that you decided to spend your life with and possibly raise children with. You're dealing with each other's scared angry inner child. So it can
Right.
be infuriating and frustrating. You're like, who are you? Like, why are you behaving like this? You're not the same person. So I had moments where when nobody was home, I would scream whatever I wanted to say to that person in the house as if they were there. And I would just like seethe and growl things like, how dare you say
Mm.
that to me? How dare you behave this way? Things I would never say anymore. Things like, after all I've done for you, like I would never say that to a person, but like I gave myself permission to say it because like you were saying, like it was living inside of me. That was one of the most cathartic things I've ever done.
It is. It is. And that's the thing. That's what is so powerful from my perspective of, again, not talking about what happened, but going and giving ourselves like the voice and the freedom to release the emotions that were then. In our psyche, that part of us doesn't know it's over. Like it still is that moment,
Yep.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm not like I think therapy is useful. I still have a therapist. I think it's super useful, but I always choose coaches and therapists that really help me like do the work and connect back and not just talk about stuff
Right.
because it doesn't really get you very far.
Yeah, you can definitely reach a point where you kind of stay stuck in that with talk therapy. So that's helpful.
Right.
Thank you. We need to take one more ad break. When we come back, I want to ask you about some other work that you do around love. So we'll be right back. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. Fast forward to the end of 2024 and think about your goals. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Now it's so easy to speak simple conversation phrases with the guy that takes care of my lawn without having to consult language apps. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/noise. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/noise, spelled BABBEL.com/noise. Rules and restrictions may apply. You know when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone, a father daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise. Okay, I don't want to walk away from this conversation without asking you about, because you also teach women to do their own personal growth work that will hopefully help them like call in their ideal partner. And we have some single people listening who are hoping to do that. Can you talk about like just some of the key moments in that program, or like give us an overview of what that looks like? I'm super curious.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Eventually, yeah. Well, this came from my own frustrations in being single pretty much my entire 30-something decade and just having terrible dating experiences and getting really kind of crappy advice from dating coaches, and really just reaching a point in my life where I really wanted to call in my person. My life was great and I wanted to share it. And I'd been divorced before, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm more than ready. And I think a lot of women feel that way. And it's like, okay, well then what? Like what's happening? And I really ditched everything in terms of dating advice and all this stuff and created my own, okay, this is the way I'm going to call him in. After I met Steph, he had a lot of female followers and because he kind of represents like a conscious man doing his work. That it's also still masculine. And that's something that a lot of women want. It's what I wanted. And he's like, I really think I'm going to help women with calling in their person, and he wrote the copy for it and he showed it to me. He's like, will you help me? And I just rewrote the whole thing. And I'm like, I need to teach this course with you. Like, this is really my course. I don't know why you're teaching this. And so we ended up teaching it together to have that male perspective, which is so useful. Doing the inner work. And I know when listening, you're like, but I've done my inner work. But we come at it from a different approach and really looking at where there's still parts of us, although they may be subtle, where there's still parts of us that are looking for what we didn't get from our parents, from a partner. And when we're in that dynamic, we can call it a relationship. It's just going to be a different kind of relationship. And what we really want to support women in is a side-by-side partnership. I talk about the 5 different kinds of relationship. I wouldn't have to go through them now, but a side-by-side partnership is where you're actually, instead of looking at each other and being like, and this is all subconscious, are you going to meet my needs? Are you going to meet my needs? Are you going to hurt me? Are you going to hurt me? Are you going to be my mom? Are you going to be my mom? Are you going to be my dad? We're looking like ahead at our values and our vision, and we're walking side by side in the same direction. And we really can't get to that level of consciousness in relationship till we like clean up a lot. We unpack. I think a lot of women have misunderstandings about what it means to be feminine. And this particular course is for heterosexual women calling in a man. Why? Because I'm a heterosexual woman calling in a man. That's what I feel equipped to teach. I don't know how to call in a relationship with a woman. That's just not my experience. So this particular course is for heterosexual women calling in a relationship with a man. And saying that, we've had women that are open to any gender or just want to be with women that are like, you know what, I'm going to do this because the consciousness you're describing, that kind of relationship, that's what I want. Doesn't matter what package it comes in. But for me, what is so beautiful about it's called Be the Queen. What's so beautiful about it is that women, yes, it's amazing. And I say we have over a 50% success, quote unquote, success rate, but of people that are partnered, it's over 50% of women.
Success being people who have found a partner that,
like a lifetime partner. Like we've had marriages and babies and all that kind of stuff. And the other women are like, wow, I'm just so much happier with myself and my life. And that's my ultimate goal. Like my ultimate intention in creating this wasn't to have women partnered. It was to help them not be suffering because they wanted one or because they felt like they were doing something wrong because they didn't have it.
Yeah.
And to really get into a place where you just love yourself and your life so much that you don't have to do anything to call him in. It just happens.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. And I also want to point people to, because I was on your podcast recently and you got a lot of great feedback from your community about it. So we'll put that link in the show notes as well for people to go and listen to that. We talked about different things than we talked about here. And before we go, is there anything that you want to circle back to or underscore that we talked about or didn't talk about to make sure that you feel complete?
Oh my God, I could talk for like 10 hours.
I know you're like me. Full sleeves up.
Okay. So as we complete, let's just talk about our relationship to control and the trauma responsive hypervigilance, which is often disguised as just being busy. So I'm assuming a lot of your listeners are women. I know you probably have both, but I'm assuming a lot.
The vast majority of them.
Yeah. So what I'd love everybody just to be aware of is how much time you spent trying to solve a problem, whether it's a problem of your kids, a problem of your own, a problem of something, problem of the world, like how much you're in that hypervigilance of worst case scenario thinking, predictive thinking, trying to come to a solution, trying to control something or someone, and really come back to the present moment and actually be like, you know what? What if it doesn't matter? What if it's not a problem? And start to break out of that sort of hypervigilance that I think so many of us do subconsciously because we're just used to being busy and just used to doing. And if we can like actually stop, because so much of our wiring comes from like actually something being a problem. And so we're subconsciously preempting things and waiting for the rug to be pulled out from us all the time.
Yeah.
And it drains our life force. It takes us out of the present moment. And it definitely moves us more out of our feminine energy. So That would be my invitation, is to notice when that hypervigilance, preemptive thinking, like worst case scenario thinking, trying to solve a problem comes in. Catch yourself, stop yourself, take a breath, feel the chair you're sitting on, your feet on the floor, and tell yourself, like, everything's okay. This is not a problem. What if this doesn't matter?
Mm-hmm.
And break that reactive, hypervigilant patterning.
I wrote that question down. What if it doesn't matter? It reminds me of a similar question that a coach asked me a long time ago that I asked myself.
My coach asked me that. Yeah.
But she worded it differently. She said, what if it just wasn't a big deal? I was like, that changed my life.
Yeah.
Because I have anxiety.
I know. Oh, I know. And that part of us is like, but it is a big deal. It is a big deal. Well, wait, but what if it isn't?
Just what if it isn't?
What if it isn't?
Yeah. It's not about, and what I remind myself, it's like, it's not about believing that it's not a big deal. It's just about getting curious of like, what would happen if it's not? How would I behave differently? That's the path.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you.
I know we not talk a lot about inner child stuff. So I've got the inner child course too that anybody can jump into as well.
Well, tell people, how to, I know we mentioned your podcast. We'll put that in the show notes, and tell people where to go to find more of your work if they're new to you.
So my website, you can find the courses and stuff there. I have a website that desperately needs to be updated, but it's super low on my priority list. I'm like,
you have a baby. Yeah.
Not interested.
It works.
I'd rather play with my 2-year-old. The courses are all there, but christinehauser.com/inner-child is the inner child course.
Thank you again for being here. I am so grateful for your time, Christine, and everyone listening. Remember, everyone, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, listeners, if you work for a company that does professional development, did you know that I offer leadership training, more specifically, empathy and assertiveness and how it makes stronger teams? You can see more on my speaking page at AndreaOwen.com/speaking, where there's also a contact button there so you can fill out that form and let's chat.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.